On my 10th anniversary, my father-in-law called me a charity case in front of 600 guests. When I spoke back, my husband slapped me so hard I crashed into a champagne tower. Everyone laughed. I wiped the blood from my lip, made one phone call, and by morning, I owned their entire world. My name is Claire. I'm 33, a quiet historic preservation consultant who never wanted attention. My husband, Grant, was the opposite, a vice president at his father's wealth firm, addicted to applause. That night was his father Reginald's 10th anniversary gala, held in a ballroom glittering with chandeliers and 600 of the city's most powerful people. Reginald took the podium mid-speech, turned to me, and said his son had shown true charity by marrying a woman elevated from nothing. The room erupted in laughter. I looked at Grant, waiting for him to defend me. Instead, he raised his glass and toasted along with them. 10 years of marriage died in that instant. I walked to the microphone. I thanked Reginald for his toast, then told all 600 guests that my renovation money had personally wired $200,000 into Grant's account just days earlier to save the firm from a margin. Call that would have bankrupted it. Gasps spread like wildfire. Reginald turned gray. Grant charged across the room and slapped me so hard I flew backward into a champagne tower, glass and blood everywhere. No one helped me. I stood up myself, dropped the mic, and walked out. In the bathroom, bruised and bleeding, I pulled out a phone number I hadn't dialed in 10 years. My father, Harrison Whitmore, chairman of one of the most feared private equity firms on the East Coast. I said 3 words. Dad, please come. Then I broke into my own house through a hidden coal chute. Grant had already changed the locks, and found my clothes stuffed in trash bags. And another woman's lingerie on our bed. Grant and his lawyer, Marcus, caught me there. Marcus revealed he'd secretly funneled my stolen savings into an offshore trust under my sister-in-law's name for 18 months, then offered me $5,000 to disappear quietly or face endless litigation. I tore the papers in half. Grant threw me out into a storm. Then headlights cut through the rain. 3 black Escalades. My father stepped out, wrapped his coat around my shivering shoulders, looked at Grant with pure disgust, and said 4 words. Their game is over. At his penthouse, I signed back into my old role as executive VP of Whitmore Global, the position he'd kept empty for 3 years, waiting for me. Using our intelligence network, I discovered Grant's firm was drowning in debt from a failed real estate project, desperately begging for a $150 million bailout. From a firm they didn't know I now controlled, I let them walk right into the trap. I approved a signing meeting the next morning, then froze every account tied to their firm at exactly 9 a.m. Credit cards declined mid-shopping spree across the city. Federal auditors stormed Marcus's office, having traced his fraud straight to stolen client pension funds and my own laundered savings. I walked into the boardroom myself, flanked by 5 attorneys, and read their crimes back to them line by line as their faces drained of color. I slid a business card across the table. Claire Whitmore, executive vice president and majority shareholder. Grant stared at it like the floor had disappeared beneath him. Marcus burst in, sweating, screaming that the SEC had frozen everything, then froze himself at the sight of me. I denied their bailout on the spot. Reginald's legacy collapsed into bankruptcy before sunset. Marcus lost his license and his freedom. And Grant fell to his knees, sobbing, begging, swearing he still loved me. I told him hitting him back would only make me like him. So instead, I handed him the divorce decree. He lost the house, the cars, everything, and kept every cent of the fraud debt he'd created. My father had security drag all 3 men out of the building. 6 months later, I stood on the steps of a restored Victorian mansion I'd funded myself, now a shelter for women escaping abuse and financial control. Marcus awaited federal trial, working as a paralegal to cover his legal bills. My mother and sister-in-law haggled over resale jewelry in a cramped apartment. And Grant, the man who once slapped me in front of 600 people, was last seen stocking shelves in a hardware store wearing an orange vest. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. The foundation is solid. I'm proud of you. I smiled, because I finally understood. My worth was never theirs to decide. I wasn't the woman who shrank herself to survive anymore. I was the architect of my own empire, and I was done hiding in anyone's shadow.